Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the afternoon session of Testing Talks Conference. My name is Matthew Santon Rutherford. I'm Quality Assurance Manager at Transport for New South Wales. And today, my panel and I are discussing strategies for implementing best practice in your workplace. I have Nithya Ramprasad from ABC, Kate Graham, in between roles starting at Westpac soon, and Anusha Srinivasan from Nine Media. Anusha, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Thank you, Matt. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you all are enjoying this conference this morning. This is Anusha Srinivasan. I work for Nine Media. I've been in this industry for a blessed 19 years, I should say. And in this conference, I have people who have worked with me in my very first ever job, as well as my first job in Australia. So that's how blessed I am. For those of you who do not know Nine Media, we are one of Australia's largest multi-platform media network, and we have our products across multiple diversified portfolios. Some of the many products that we own include Sydney Morning Herald, AFR, Channel 9, as we are popularly called, Stan, domain.com.au, 2GB radio stations, and many more. Personally, my full-time passion is my family and my two daughters, 12 and 10, and I'm really excited to be here today. I'll pass it on to Nithya.
Thank you, Anusha. Hello, everyone. I'm Nithya Ramprasad, and I'm the engineering manager for quality at the ABC. And very fortunate to have spent about 15 plus years in the industry of quality. And I've also had the opportunity to travel across the globe as a consultant. And then finally, we found our home 10 years ago at the Gadigal land of Australia. And we migrated as a family. And here I am, I'm working for the ABC, and I'm very excited to be part of their digital transformation journey as they are really taking up the journey to embrace themselves as the digital first media organization. And talking about my personal front, I'm blessed with a very supporting partner, 3 children, 3 kids, two loving humans and a loving dog. And yeah, I spend, apart from my family, I also have a passion for music. So I do a lot of experimentation there, and I would say music has also defined me, all the ventures to do quality better. So yeah, that's about me, and I'd pass it over to Kate. Very, very blessed to be sitting here to share my experiences and journeys.
Thank you so much. So my name's Kate Graham. And I am a mother to 2 teenage children, which is why you might see a lot of grey hair on my head in between the peroxide. So I have been in software testing since 1999. I came here as a little grommet, I think, from England, and rode the Y2K wave. And I've enjoyed software testing ever since. It's something I'm so passionate about. I can talk about it for hours. I'll try not to today, although I think I'm in good company, so I think we'd all have a bit of a good chat. But yeah, I'm currently in between roles. I was working at News Corp, heading up quality and environment management there. I've recently finished up there, and I'm about to start heading up testing at Westpac, which I'm really excited about and delighted to see some of my new colleagues here today. So thank you for the lovely welcome you've all provided to me. And also, it's actually been amazing to see some of my ex-colleagues here, a lot of them actually today, including David, who I remember we started off 19 years ago in a very small software organisation. David was a graduate, and I saw straight away just how awesome he was. And it feels like my young child has grown up now. I feel very maternal. Yeah, a petulant child. But no, I mean, fantastic to see how you've grown professionally and also with your gorgeous family as well. I've got people here from ASX and CBA and other areas. So thank you for having me. Can't wait to get this off the ground.
Thanks, everyone. Okay, so panel discussion. I'll be asking panel members different questions, and then there'll be time for questions from the audience at the end. All right, let's dive in. Mindset. What mindset drives best practice? Anusha.
I guess that's a very interesting and important question, because we all understand and acknowledge that having the right mindset is really key for a very successful transformation program, be it of any sorts. I would say that the first and foremost mindset that brings about this transformation is acknowledging and understanding that perfect is the enemy of good, that there is always scope to improve whatever the current stance is, and we can always iteratively and continuously improve. Let's assume that we are scaling a quality cliff, right? And once we reach the peak after a lot of hard work and teamwork and collaboration, if we just settle down there stating, hey, we have achieved perfection and this is it, we will only lose out to the competition and we would soon be out of business. So we should always constantly re-evaluate and evaluate our processes, product quality, and the way we approach things, and constantly reinvent the way we work, as well as keep innovating and keep implementing creative practices as such. So that's the key mindset I would call out. I would also like to add on that I have observed this mindset largely in teams that has advocates, quality passionate advocates, be it in any form. They need not just be quality engineers as per role title. Those could be the principal engineers, the software engineers, the iteration managers, engineering managers, and in my experience, I've seen quality passionate product owners as well, guiding those continuous improvement journey within the teams. And this is also observed in teams that loves to experiment, try new things, keep innovating and keep identifying creative solutions that prioritizes open communication, collaboration over all else. This can also be achieved if it doesn't exist by embedding quality within the core culture, prioritizing quality over all else, and making sure that we work together to create a safe and inclusive environment that would support the mindset. Some of the key principles that has worked for 9 include, as mentioned before, perfect is the enemy of good. We understand that different teams are at different levels when it comes to quality maturity and best practices implementation. So where they are actually starting does not matter as long as they are committed to continuously improve and keep beating their own records. Quality is being everyone's responsibility. It's a part of every job description that we create. It's a part of the hiring process, onboarding, career progression. It's a part of every retrospective that we do. It's a part of every smaller celebrations that we do within the organization as well. So build quality in as part of your culture. Make sure that you prioritize quality just like you would prioritize every other initiative, tech work, and build an inclusive environment where we are all learning together, growing together, and then sharing together as such.
Thanks, Anusha. And for Kate, quality mindset for you, what does it mean?
Wow, Anusha, that was amazing. I think you've pretty much captured everything there. So, echoing your point about, having people who value quality and understand that value and share that sort of passion to get things right. I think curiosity plays a part there as well. Is there a better way of doing things, challenging the status quo or how things have been done or are being done? And also things around learnings, what have we learned from the last sprint, or when you're waterfall, what have we learned from the last project, and what are we actually going to do about avoiding some of those things that we encountered along the way for the next time. I think in an agile world, people are far more retrospective, and the ability to implement that change on a regular basis is a lot easier than when you're in the waterfall world and you go through kind of 9 months. And waterfall still exists, guys. Like it really, really does. 9 months after the project's gone live, to then retrospectively look back is really hard. One of the things we look to implement is, even in a waterfall world, let's look back every month and see what things are working and what aren't, and what can we change along the way. And then the other two for me is the determination to improve. It's not always easy to push change through, but I think if you keep going, like I kind of allude to a Jack Russell at your ankles, just like not letting go, keep pushing it, be a hassle and hassle people. I think it's really important to not step down from that and have it as a core value. And then finally, be brave. It's not easy to disrupt, it's not easy to change, but feel empowered to actually raise those questions.
Thanks, Kate. And still with you. So why do we need best practice? Isn't just any practice okay?
No. From my perspective, I think it feels really good to do a good job, guys. I think, you need to be able to deliver at pace and maintain quality. You need to be able to constantly change. Our environment has changed significantly, certainly in my career, and now I feel that the things are changing quicker and more often. So it's really important to focus on practice. There are also other considerations around, security requirements, for example, ensuring test environments and your data in those environments are masked so that we can meet security requirements. And then also more in the kind of banking and finance, the regulatory side of things. So making sure that you've got appropriate levels of documentation so that, when you get the auditors on your back, you can happily sit down with a coffee and it's a nice, easy conversation, as opposed to going, oh, no, I didn't actually store that test result for that really important transaction. I think those are some of the things for me. And constantly inspecting how we do things, improving them. Once you've improved them, not stopping there, right? Set yourself a higher benchmark to then be able to achieve.
Thank you. So thinking of best practice, what is quality best practice to you, Anusha? What does it look like?
Let's split that phrase, right? So quality best practice. Quality, I'll stay safe and go by the popular definition that quality is value to some person who matters. And best practice is the most successful, proven, effective way of doing something, right? So I'm going to take the simpler route here, combine these two, and say that quality best practice to me is the most proven, successful, effective way of consistently delivering value to the products that we build, the stakeholders that we manage, as well as the services that we own as such.
Cool. Good. And Nithya, so you're talking about kind of where best practice is now. How has it changed for you over time?
I think it's a great question, right? Because, it's a very important question to ask. Like, how have we evolved with quality? Quality, when you think about a product, I think the involvement of the quality professionals has been after the product has been developed. So typically you think about automating your test scripts and automating your QA arena. But now I think it's just automation anywhere, everywhere. And you bring in your quality thought processes earlier on, right from the product inception. So when we talk about design, there's a lot of user-centric test design practices that we do today, typically like A/B testing, and also with collaboration with the development. So there's a lot of shift-left approaches around how we really collaborate with engineers, wear the engineering hat to say, is the code quality built in correctly? Are there branching strategies correctly developed? So these are things which we also review to ensure that when the product is getting built, it is built in the right way. So do it right, I think, is the strategy that we've been evolving into. And so wearing all the hat from left to right, and also talking about right approaches, I think there's a lot of involvement on understanding infrastructure as a code. So there's a lot of infrastructure testing that we are involved in. So do we wear the DevOps hat? Yes, we do, because we need to understand what is the load capacity for our servers. So are we actually balancing it quite well? So a lot of aspects around shifting right. So, and also another few examples would be around security testing. Do we talk about application monitoring? So do we know the vulnerabilities of our application? So all these hats typically, I think, is the evolution that I see with quality. So thinking through the product on various aspects of how it is getting built, rather than looking at it after it is built, is how I've seen it's evolved through these years. And I'm pretty sure we're all going to have a lot of work there. And not to say that coaching might be a redundant option, but typically I think wearing these multiple hats is still going to make us more strong and more, the more approachable team that we go to, when we want to make sure that the quality is built into the product. Yeah.
I totally agree. I totally agree to whatever you just called out. I'd like to think of it with a racing car analogy. Let's say we have a racing car and we are racing against our competitors in the same track, and we are trying to deliver the product to the end customer who's at the finishing line. And we have to deliver the product at the fastest rate before the competition beats us to it. And we have to also deliver it in a very secure manner and with utmost quality, right? That's why we all are here. In this instance, I think about best practices as in the previous days, maybe it was only the driving skills that was required. These days, it's all the security maneuvers, all the seat belts, all the observability dashboards that's in front of you, having the ability to read them and then make adjustments to your journey as such. Also assessing the external market trends, looking at how your competitors are doing, how the environment is changing, which route to take, shortest route, longer route, tolls, no tolls, whatever it is. Keep applying, keep assessing the situation constantly, and then keep changing your tactics so that we are with the only objective of delivering the product to the end customer faster, safer, and with utmost quality.
Thank you. So, Kate, what support is required from organisations to allow best practice?
I think some of the key things for me is having an environment that is open-minded to change, having that culture kind of built into the organisation, or if it's not, sort of helping to start create that. I think having quality advocates and champions across the organisation who really understand the value of quality is key. So not even just within testing, not even just within technology, but outside of that, you obviously referred to product managers as well. And executive support, right? If you haven't got executive support that really, are prepared to invest in quality, whether it's tools, whether it's licenses, whether it's resources to uplift a capability, you are really going to struggle, I think. So, I think the open-mindedness probably is one of the biggest pieces for me in terms of driving that quality culture through an organisation.
Have you seen any organisations that don't have that?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, probably about 80% of the... I know, I've worked in a lot of places throughout my career, and I think there's definitely been a journey and an evolution, and it comes down to education and being able to prove that value. The biggest thing for me is having conversations with people around the cost of, fixing a defect before code has even been written when we're statically testing requirements, or making sure that those requirements or use cases are testable. The cost of fixing up that requirement involves maybe a QA guy to review it and a product owner or whoever's responsible for that requirement to update it, versus pushing it through a development, writing code, doing their unit testing, and then getting into a formal SIT environment, because the cost of fixing it then is huge. Being able to articulate that, I think, is key. And, I have done that previously where I've actually quantified it in terms of dollars. And that's a much easier sort of story to sell, I think, if you've got that information behind you.
Thank you. All right, so now we get on to the more meaty part of the discussion. What are your challenges and solutions for implementing best practice? Anusha, would you like to start, please?
I'm sure there are a lot of challenges that not just the panelists, but all of us share. I would like to pick just one of them and deep dive. That's the most common challenge that I have faced in my current organization. I think I called out 9 Media is a very large organization, and we have diversified products. We manage websites, apps, radio apps as well, video, audio. We also have Windows applications. And we have this diverse set of teams. Every team is unique, different, and distinct, and they add their own unique value to our end customers, right? How do we ensure that we establish consistent best practices across the board? Because the teams are different, their needs are different, their challenges are different, their dependencies are different, their skill sets are different, their delivery model might be slightly different too. Quality being the responsibility of everybody, and quality being built into the culture, we expect these teams to own and take accountability for the quality for the products that they build in. They're also provided with the right autonomy to make their own decisions when it comes to quality for their services, right? With autonomy, the advantage is there's no bureaucracy. We have a constant flow of continuous improvement items going through and getting delivered as part of the backlog, and it gets delivered as part of the good partnership that the tech has with the product. With the autonomy, while that's the advantage, we also have to make sure that there is uniformity in terms of the best practices, tools that gets implemented across the board. Otherwise, we would run into the risk of teams reinventing the wheel from the scratch themselves, creating pockets of best practices and then pockets of local maximas out there, and then not really making the best out of the community, sharing that we can do, and make sure that we are learning from each other's failures and sharing the best practices. So that's been one of the most common challenge for us. Some of the strategies that has helped us overcome it, first and foremost, as Kate called out, identifying change champions or quality advocates who are embedded within each of the team. Naturally, we expect the quality engineers to be the change champions and quality advocates, so they are a given. I have a few bunch of quality passionate advocates from 9 here, and then I have everybody else here as well. So I think this resonates with each one of you. But not just that, also identifying change champions in the form of software engineers or iteration managers or product managers who resonates with the quality advocates notion of building quality first and then making quality a part of our culture. Bringing them together and making sure that we engage them in quality guild sessions or our community catch-ups, where the main focus is surfacing all the challenges that currently exist within the pockets of the squads and teams, and seeing if there is a pattern that exists and if we could collaborate together and identify a best practice, identify a common implementation that we could share with each other. The advantage of these catch-ups, of these communities of practice, is that it's not just the challenges that get surfaced, but also the best practices that exist within the team that get surfaced at the practices level. And each of these change champions, they learn from the best practices being shared by other people and other teams, and they take it back to the team. They act as a change catalyst, they roll it forward. And we keep repeating this. We keep repeating this information in the meetings, in our quality guild sessions, in the brown bag sessions that we run, in the training sessions, the 101, 201, 301 training catch-ups that we have. And we take every opportunity to share the best practice and make sure that everybody understands what is expected out of them when it comes to best practices implementation. That's just one. Making quality as part of the culture, I think I've called that out previously, and building a community together and then sharing and then celebrating successes, having an inclusive environment where experiments are kind of welcome. I think that has been covered before. Those are some of the ways that we are overcoming. I wouldn't say that we are out there perfect. Again, I would like to repeat, perfect is the enemy of good. I think we always have an opportunity to improve, and we are getting better day by day.
Could you give me an example of one of those things for your workplace?
Example of a best practice?
Or community, all the things you talked about. An example of one of the things you talked about.
So we have a community of quality practitioners, and it includes quality engineers as well as software engineers who are passionate about quality, and we do have catch-ups at both the organization level, where all the quality engineers catch up and we share best practices, we share we celebrate moments, we celebrate wins in terms of quality improvement, and we also have focused department level catch-ups as well, which is super context tight, where we keep sharing common tools that might be useful across the board. We keep reviewing implementation standards as well, and then make sure that all the implementation fits to the best practices. We also have tools. We have bootstrapping repositories that has all the best practices built in, so that whenever a new service or an application gets built, it inherits all the best practices from the bootstrap repositories. We have dashboards that kind of also informs us and indicates us of how we are performing in terms of our best practices, and throws some guidelight around where we should focus on. Next as well, so what else should I cover? We have service hygiene score, where we have automated ways of scanning every repository, every service, check for best practices and score it against the parameters that we are verifying. And that gets surfaced at the pull request level as well as at the Bitbucket level, so that it stays up in the forefront of every engineer's face. And I think creating visibilities is one of the key parts of continuously improving as well. We might invest in building as many metrics and dashboards, but as long as the teams are not aware of it, they don't know where it sits, out of sight becomes out of mind.
Thank you. That's a lot.
Amazing.
Yeah, that is amazing.
Goodness.
Yeah. Could you tell us about what are challenges and solutions for best practice at your workplace?
Sure. I think Anusha has really covered up the important piece of how inconsistency does exist. So I would like to deep dive into prioritization of the engineering practices, specifically quality engineering practices. I'm sure most of you would resonate to refactoring, optimization, re-architecturing, or you want to trial a new framework. So these are very common things that we would continue to do in our own workplace. And when we do that, I think the prioritization of how we would sell that to bring it up in the priority backlog has been one of the key challenges. And of course, ABC is no exception to it. So there's I think engineering, creativity in engineering comes when there's a lot of limitations. So, and we know, and we usually call it, in Chinese, I think crisis and opportunities is a one word. So crisis opportunity is what we normally call it. So I think how we have handled it, possibly I would deep dive into an example of our presentation layer, where we've used the WebDriver IO scripts for actually testing our presentation layer. And there definitely was some flakiness. So be it in the way we had architected it, in the way we have configured it. So there was a lot of scope for us to improve on that. And we wanted to trial into playwright tests. So that was one of the cases. And how did we do it? We really had to kind of really sell that to say this is going to make the product more sustainable, make the test results more reliable. And so there was a separate backlog that we used to possibly maintain for the quality engineering stories. But then we thought, as Anusha mentioned, there was no visibility to it. So why not just club the product backlog together to say that if we were going to build a new feature, and if that feature needs to be definitely having a lot of performance built into it, and you need to ensure that it's built in the right way. So why not we trial that with our playwright test? So it's monorepoed with the dev build, and we ensured that it was frequently run and used by the developers, because that's one of the most common challenges. We build our scripts, but how much of it is definitely used earlier on? I think the more simplistic, the more we build it in a very simplistic way, it's more consumable, I think. And we kind of re-architected our scripts to ensure that it was part of the dev monorepo, and it was constantly running for every build, and that was a great return, we felt. And we still are not completely migrated into that framework, but we definitely know the tweaks of how we could make this a priority over our product features. So that I think was one of the challenges, and how we solved it is to innovatively do this conversion all the time, to say that it's not a engineering backlog, rather it's for the product, and to make the product more reliable and sustainable. And how do we kind of bring it in the forefront is what we learned in this process, really.
Amazing.
Thank you. Kate.
How can I follow on from these two champions? Goodness me. I think one of the challenges that we had at News Corp was, without having a head of QA for quite a long period of time, the guys within the testing and environment management space didn't really have a voice. And they were very much consumed by the project teams themselves, and didn't really have that ability to be able to speak up. And during my time at News Corp, I worked really hard to try and break that down and create that psychological safety that we always talk about. I worked really closely with our vendors, so Tech Mahindra and TCS are our key vendors at News Corp, and provided a lot of the staff within our teams. And we worked really hard to create that culture of speaking up, and there was a balance and that they needed to strike, with not upsetting the client, but at the same time also listening and hassling and kind of trying to raise quality issues when they saw them happening within a sprint or within a project. And ultimately, I think what really assisted with that was when we developed some key quality metrics and dashboards. Now, it's really hard to argue against data and dashboards, as long as it's correct. Make sure you get your data right. But giving the QA engineers the data and the dashboards allowed them to be able to have really good conversations with the teams about improving. One of the key ones we used to use, the metrics, was the defect detection rate. So we'd often get delivery from, should I name them, a particular vendor. We would get code delivered, and we had an 86% defect detection rate, which actually meant 86% of our system integration tests were failing, right? Should be around, I don't know, 10 and under. And so we were able to use that data that we were producing on a regular basis to really have some good conversations with our vendor around, come on guys, are you doing any testing? Can we have a look at what you're doing? And without that data, it would have been just a little bit of a, it's not very good. So implementing key metrics, I think, is key to assist QA engineers to be able to hold those what can be sometimes difficult conversations, because it's quite hard to hide behind that data.
I've got to put in my 2 cents worth in about metrics.
Go for it.
I published production defect leakage. We recently put a project in that had 30 defects found in SIT, 80 at UAT and 89 in production.
Ouch. Sucker punch.
So I've got some data now about why we need best practice, because this is what the current practice is giving us.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I told that recently to the Director of Application Development. The look on her face was surprise. Okay, so we've talked about what we're doing. What are we not doing? So what ideas are you not touching? What will you not be doing, and why? Anusha.
Cool. I guess I gave a bit of a background about the diversified teams and the diversified products that we have. So if there's one thing that I would not do, that would be not applying a one-size-fits-all approach. Naturally, gone are the days where every team in an organization was expected to fit into a set size and were evaluated against it. And because metrics is currently in vogue, I'm going to pick up like a metrics example too. So let's say we have an initiative where we are rolling out standard metrics out to all the teams within an organization. And let's say those metrics are the standard accelerate key metrics. And we are encouraging every team to track their deployment frequency, lead time to delivery, their incident mean time to recovery and failure rate. These vectors, these metrics as a standalone vectors are not just sufficient to understand what is actually happening in a team. So let's say we have team A that has really great deployment frequency and team B, which has a slightly lesser one. That's not enough data point to say, hey, team A is doing better than team B, right? So we have to really correlate it with the failure metrics. So are they really compromising on quality because they are focusing on speed? If a team is not doing well with speed, what else is the bottleneck in their upstream value flow that's actually impacting them? What are their bottlenecks? If a team is really doing well in all the metrics dashboards that we have set up, are they really adding value in terms of the business outcomes that they set out to do, or is it just being gamified, right? So we really have to understand, get down to the levels of the team and understand what is actually happening. Like the ChatGPT discussion we had this morning, context is king. So we have to understand the right context in order to be able to make the right decisions. So that's one thing that I'll definitely not do.
Thank you. Nithi, what are you not doing?
Yeah, I think on the same lines, I really had this thought process on how metrics or measures are important, but it needs to really stay very relevant to the teams and the products. So in our case, we have platform teams and product teams. So this is platform teams who are 90% automated, and there are product teams who are still reliant on manual testing, and there's a lot of nuances around the manual engineers. So for me, I felt that I always opinionate that quality is just not about automation; it's also knowing the product really well. So so the hybrid nature of the quality engineers make us really unique. So not measuring on how much we automate is something that I want to stop doing. And also around the engineering guilds. So I have a very strong team who are all busy, extremely busy with a lot of changes that's happening in our digital world. So I had these meetings recurring fortnight, but I've made them really dynamic or if required. So it needs to have a purpose and a takeaway. So that was something that I spoke to the team about to say, we don't need to be coming to these meetings just because we need to meet up. There's other social ways to connect. But if there's a purpose and if there's a definite takeaway that we could have, why not? Let's come together and have a guild meeting. And it doesn't need to be driven by a quality engineer. It could be anybody within the organization, and we could be part of that. So that was the openness that I had.
Thank you. Kate, what's at the top of your not doing list?
I think there's a couple. I think when you come into an organisation, and these are more kind of, leadership kind of thoughts when you start in a new organisation, and the key, I think, is to not go in guns blazing, trying to change everything straight away. I think it's really easy to make judgment when you first go into an organisation and go, oh, this is wrong, what are you doing that for? We didn't do that at our old place. And I think, that's something I learned actually quite early on in my sort of test management career. Was I thought I knew it all and I could bring, what I learned from the old place to the new place and kind of do a cookie cutter, and found out very quickly that no, you can't do that. And I think what's really important to me is understanding an organisation's DNA and why decisions have been made. Decisions are made for a reason, and it's very easy to go in and judge and go, oh, tut, 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 that's really bad. But there's usually some history behind it, and I think it's really important to be aware of that and spend time listening to people and understanding what that might be. And then the other one, which I actually learned at News Corp, was don't push change through too quickly. You might have the best ideas in the world about implementing test-driven development, but if your QA and your engineering teams are still actually quite standalone and haven't even figured out how to work together, there's no point trying to push things through if the organisation is not ready, and that can be frustrating. I think, as I love change and I love transformation and I love implementing things that are going to add value, but they really do have to be at the right rhythm of the organisation that you're in. And then I think, just echoing some previous comments there around, when you have an organisation that's got different business streams that have probably ended up separately and then been brought together, there's often different delivery models and maturity across those different business lines. Trying to bring together a rigid enterprise test framework that kind of tries to standardise everything and, throttle some teams, and then other teams are like, what's going on here? I think, be empathetic to those delivery models. Yes, you want to change them in the long run, but in the medium term, work with those teams to implement a framework and a practice that actually is sympathetic to that.
Thank you. I'd just like to reiterate about the communities of practice. I've run a guild in a previous organisation, and that was kind of focused on what I thought people wanted. That was a bad place to start. It has to be what they want in the time they want, have outcomes, and you won't get everybody involved, and then you've just got to be happy with that. Yeah. All right. So now we're on to the nitty gritty. What are the strategies for implementing best practice in your team? Anusha, okay. Let's wrap it up.
Yeah, cool. I guess I completely echo Kate's thoughts on it's going to take time. So any best practice implementation, it's a gradual journey. It's not going to happen overnight. And we're going to need consistent efforts, constant open communication, and a lot of patience to drive long-lasting results, right? So
again, just when we say time, how long do you think you should
as long as the team requires, as long as it's organic, and then we're not pushing the team. So some of the strategies that has worked for us include seeking first to understand and then be understood. So talking to the teams and understand what their pain points are, what their bottlenecks are, what are the reasons why they are not able to adopt the best practices. If it's lack of awareness, or if the awareness is present, what are the other constraints that the team has? So understanding the context first, and then rephrasing the solution or the best practice in such a way that they are able to see the value that the best practice gets in terms of solving their own challenges. So seek first to understand the context, evaluate that the best practice still applies to them, make changes if required, so be flexible, don't be rigid on the suggestions that you're sharing. And 4, rephrase the pitch where they are able to see the value of actually doing it. So that's one. The second thing that has worked is, I think I've called it out many times now, building quality as part of your culture, empowering everybody, providing them with the right tools, knowledge, and the confidence so that everybody in the team, including the engineers and the product owners and the engineering managers, they feel confident that they can deliver quality and they can build quality in as part of the products and the services that they work on. So in Nine, we do have a practice of catching up every quarter and running a deep dive quality workshop, which is usually facilitated by the quality advocate. I mean, just highlighting that it doesn't mean that quality issues doesn't get highlighted in the sprint retrospectives. It also gets highlighted, but this is a focused catch-up just on quality alone that happens every quarter. We use that brainstorming session to build our short-term goals in terms of a quarter. What are we going to deliver in terms of quality improvements? Also, the discussions are really fruitful in understanding what should our long-term improvement goal look like. And with that, we create the quality backlog, very similar to what Nithya called out as to what happens in ABC, and then we keep rolling forward. So this activity actually helps the team understand and discuss the quality issues from different perspectives, from an engineer's point of view, from a QE's point of view, from an IM's point of view, and build their backlog. And this also helps the communities of practice identify if there are trends that exist across the board, and if we could collaborate together and if we could join hands and tech swarm in identifying common solutions. I guess the other one is also giving the team, empowering the team to take complete autonomy for delivering those actions as well as making those decisions. And last but not the least, also keeping abreast with whatever is happening in the industry. The best example is this conference, attending conferences like this, understanding and hearing from your peers, and then encouraging your team members to take part too. That's me.
Thank you. Nithya?
Yes, so I think I would start with an important phrase to say, you separate your decisions from outcomes. That I think would really do the wonders, and it would give you the right pace for you to evolve, to become more matured, because sometimes we are too outcome focused, and you take decisions for bringing in the right outcome, and sometimes those decisions are not the right decisions. So, really encourage everyone to read this book called Thinking in Bets, which is really talking about the different strategies that we should be using to decide versus separate the outcome component, because when the decisions are made with honesty, the outcomes evolve. And when I say that, I think it really relates to the choice of what we want to do in testing. So what are the different layers that we have today, and how do you decide on where do you want to improve and delve deep into? And all those decisions is what I mean by separating the outcomes, and also give the pace. So as Kate mentioned, there's going to be a specific time required for every product or platform to evolve and get matured at. So give the pace and the space to evolve. And also the last one that I would call as a strategy is call out failure stories and share lessons learned, because I think we always love to hear success stories all the time, but it's so valuable to hear stories which did not work for us, and also share the lessons learned, which could be so useful for us to decide better the next time.
Thank you. Kate?
I think it probably sounds rather cliched, but for me it is literally all about the people. It's about building a motivated, inspired team, creating a compelling vision as a quality practice that people can connect to, that have helped contribute to, creating a sense of identity for that practice so they really understand why they're here and the value that they bring. We talked about psychological safety before. I think that's imperative to build that. Everyone actively contributes. That's really important, I think, to making sure that you've got a really great, happy, high-performing team. You've got everyone that wants to improve, everyone that wants to contribute. And then also, I think, understanding how you are operating. We mentioned about attending meetups. So you can really compare yourself against the industry about how you think you are in terms of maturity. When I was at News Corp, and it's not for everyone, right, and it's not for every organisation, but we developed a test maturity matrix that, really helped us focus on what we wanted to achieve for FY23. We wanted to shift from, out of levels 1, 2, 3, and 4, we sort of thought we were at 1.5. We wanted to try and get to 3 by the end of the year. And then we broke down what we wanted to try and achieve to actually get to that level of maturity. And that gave, whilst it was, it was quite prescriptive, it gave, and the feedback was great, it gave people a focus. We linked it to people's KPIs. We caught up and talked about it. We looked at how we were progressing. We recognised and celebrated achievements. And that really gave people a really good focus, not only for myself and my leadership team, but then below into the actual squads and the teams themselves. Everyone knew what our vision was. Everyone knew what our KPIs were and what we were trying to achieve through uplifting our test practice alongside delivery.
Thank you, Kate. All right, that brings us to the end of our panel discussion. We've got time for questions. Please put your hand up if you'd like to ask a question. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, everyone, for your great insights. Just wondering, on the pandemic, how did that impact best practices, positives, negatives, and what would be different for next time?
I can answer one of those. Yeah.
Thanks, Kate.
Hello, Frank, by the way. It's nice to see you. So look, both my last two roles, I started and within a week we'd been sent home for COVID-1. So I created my quality practice all virtually. The key for me was around consistency. We met every single morning at 9:30. Some days we would talk about work, other days we'd just talk about things that were really annoying us with being at home, constantly. And creating that sense of camaraderie was key for me and for the rest of the team as well. That when we then did meet in person, we knew each other so well, we'd confided, we were almost, really good friends alongside being really, colleagues as well. So that happened when I was working at Human Force and then also when I started at News Corp. COVID-2 hit within a week of me starting there. That was a bit more of a challenge, I have to say, because trying to learn more about an organisation online, which was actually a lot bigger than Human Force, where I could really understand the nuances quite easily, that took a lot more effort, I think, on my behalf to make sure that I connected even more so with platform managers, engineering leaders, engineering managers, SLT. We were really lucky that our CTO, Jules Delaney, was amazing at holding regular stand-ups, even virtually as well, where there'd be sort of 400 people all on the call. That consistency, we looked forward to that as well, and I think that's really what allowed us to kind of cope in that situation. And I do remember there was one time where there was a wonderful employee called Gregory, who I think is now at Canva. He was a musician, and we had a stand-up one day, and you could actually sense people were feeling quite low on the call. And Jules said, "Oh, come on, Greg, could you play us a song?" And he played us this live guitar music and sang us this kind of like a ballad in French. He was French as well. And the emotion that poured through the Zoom call was incredible. Even myself, I've got goosebumps now revisiting it. You were welling up. People were welling up in tears because it was just lovely to hear this live music when, you were all sort of quite disparate and in completely different locations. And I think that just shows the power of that consistency, that regular catch-up, that regular check-in, just as human beings.
Yep. One of the things that we have recently started that reflects what Kate mentioned about the test maturity metrics. We have something called as a squad maturity metrics. It's very equivalent to the career progression metrics that every organization would have, that has predefined levels of maturity levels, and it shows a clear progression in terms of where we currently are and what the next level looks like.
Is this like a framework?
Yeah, it's a framework.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a framework.
It is.
And we are still taking baby steps there because quality and a few other practices are quite out there. It's not rolled out completely within 9 yet, but it has proven really successful so far. And I reflect all the thoughts that Kate had mentioned before. It gives a framework for the teams to do a self-assessment on where exactly we are, what does our next level look like, and then identify your actions around how to get to that next level, and then create tickets, have the conversation with your product, get it prioritized, get a deadline, and then keep rolling.
And also, just to add to it, I think, realization of where we stand. And on top of it, as simple as, start sharing your best practices across your community, because for me, that was the first step, to kind of start sharing around what are the good things that we do within our team, and sharing is caring, honestly, because the moment you start sharing, there's a lot of a correlation that start falling into place to say, I would want to trial with Jest. I mean, do we have a contact for this? And I saw the other person presenting it the other day. So I think connections do happen when you start sharing what we do as in within every product or platform. So a community of practice is the best place to start sharing.
And my advice would be to start with why. Why? Start with why. So why do you want to move to best practice? What will that give the people who are going to change?
Yes.
Yeah,
What's in it for them? Yeah.
100%.
Yes, Paul.
There's one person.
1, 2, 3. Then we're done. Who's going in?
Because currently AI machine learning is pretty hot, I wonder if anyone has a thought, discussion of how we go to do AI-based testing and also what AI can leverage to test domain.
Anyone got an idea about that?
Sorry,
Go.
I'll let you go. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll just reflect whatever was discussed this morning using ChatGPT and then how we can use it in our day-to-day lives. That's something that we are consistently doing within 9. And we are also using it to generate some test articles and some content generation that supports our testing needs as well. But it's just the starting step, right? Tomorrow and the day after, we have a hackathon to come up with AI-based solutions for the product challenges that we have. And we are in discussion with all the leading providers, AWS, Google, Fastly, and understand what their AI offerings are and what is available at the enterprise level and how could we possibly leverage it. So hopefully when we catch up next time, I can give some update on that. That's from
Just to add on it, I think ABC is already starting to invest on a lot of AI, platform for editor, for getting the content out, and we are hiring. Okay, and when you ask this question, yes, I think even to understand what's needed on the job description of an AI model tester is something which is very unique, and I think ChatGPT can help us there as well to help us with the G.
All right, thank you. Question over here?
Yep. So this was a really great session, and I think it resonates with most of us who are here, and we know the value of everything that each and everything that you all have mentioned. My question is, how do you translate the value for business to really understand what we require in terms of, so that we are able to get the correct support in terms of resources, infrastructure, people, money, tools, everything, because while we understand the value perfectly, until we are not able to translate it in a language that business can understand, things don't take off on the ground. So what was your strategy to have that value?
Get really good at doing PowerPoints. And unfortunately, we still live in a PowerPoint world or a deck creation world, but being able to articulate the value is absolutely key, and you have to become very resilient, because actually you might have to have these conversations quite a number of times before actually it clicks with the business guys. But there's certain things where there's certain kind of ways, levers that you can almost use to help sell it around. UAT, for example, is a great one where you've got business and technology working together really strongly. So using that as a vehicle to have those conversations, whether it's about, we can come and help you support UAT, we can provide you with templates, we can provide you with people that can help execute, or we can provide you with metrics, we can set up your environments. I think, being able to tell that story, and then once again, it comes back to the vision again of what you are as a practice, and being able to sell that vision through your organisation, through identifying the value that it's going to bring, whether it's cost savings, whether it's product speed to market, all those kind of things. And it's a journey.
And also, just make quality everyone's problem, because it's...
Shift left, shift everywhere.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Paul, last question.
Thank you. Just a question. The idea, the word best practice, is somewhat of a loaded word in software testing. And we used to have, I mean, it was only 10 years ago that we had the term best practices introduced, things like IE 829, ISO 2991, which was very contentious in this industry. And what it means, I think, is that there's a lot of friction to the idea of best practice being something that can be applied to software teams. So how do you, but however, it gives you a framework to compare the qualities of each team, compare user metrics, compare them. So how do you, A, get buy-in from individual, say, testers and devs who may have had friction in the past with the idea of a top-down standard imposed on them in a way that's flexible, but so they feel that their particular situation is fair? And how do you actually use metrics to compare the qualities of teams in a way that is fair to them and doesn't make people feel like, you know, their round holes being pushed into square pegs? Sorry.
3 minutes to answer that.
Yeah, I think I can just take the part of the question. Very good question though, because I think there comes the simplicity of what, you know, what frameworks we choose to automate, right? So as I mentioned, I think there's a lot of buy-in when you start talking about how can you build your scripts mono-repoed with the devs? How can you make it more simple in terms of design and in terms of building them? So there's more accountability and there's more ownership around running them more frequently, maintaining them. So there's a lot of buy-in from the dev teams when you actually collaboratively establish these practices around how you build automation or how you build the quality gates for testing this product. So yeah, I think I would let the others also go with this question, but it's a great question though.
Yeah, it is a good question, but I think my only comment there would be, I don't think I'd want to compare teams to one another. I don't think it's very healthy. No, not
That's something we're not going to do.
Yeah. I think it can breed unhealthy habits when you try and compare, you know, not only sort of quality metrics but velocity. You know,
right.
It's just every team should have the autonomy to operate, you know, how they see fit, and I think. You know, every team would have different business value applied to what they're doing, and so I just think that comparison shouldn't.
Yep. And it's imperative and it's very important to make sure that we're not landing in such unintended consequences when we are establishing metrics and rolling out. We have to make doubly sure that it drives the right outcomes and doesn't land us in such unintended consequences. So keep highlighting that this is not for comparing teams. This is just to be used as a self-assessment tool so that you use this metric, you understand where is your opportunity in terms of improving. Then you commit to improving yourself and ask for help if you need help.
All right, thank you very much. We'll wrap it up there. Can I ask you to help me thank the panel?